Hey guys, Dov here with another battle for Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer. Today's topic is going to be a little bit of a meta one, so let's keep it in slow-mo here as we kind of discuss things. So, you guys may or may not know, I am generally known to be an Empire main, with Bretonnia kind of coming as a close second. And I and some other players have come to the conclusion recently that many faction mains actually think their faction is bad, or worse than it actually is. There are a few reasons for this. One of them, primarily, in my opinion, is that people get into a certain paradigm or play style about their faction, right? Like, they usually find a few set of builds that works well for them, and they kind of just run with that and sort of develop into a certain play style, right? And oftentimes you sort of get blinders to potential other play styles with that faction, especially play styles that might not seem readily apparent that that faction is good at. So, for example, Vampire Coast is a good example. Vampire Coast rush builds are incredibly strong, and yet you'll see them played very rarely because Vampire Coast is sort of geared towards being primarily a shooting faction, right? Bretonnia is by no means meant to be a shooting faction. In fact, missile weapons are seen as very unchivalrous in Bretonian culture and society, and as thus you wouldn't really think to bring them as a shooting faction. Now, as it pertains to their tough matchups, though, like here, this is from a stream a while back. Hadris is actually playing Bretonnia, and I'm playing the Lizardmen. And he's brought a build that I would never ever think to bring, and it's gonna potentially work pretty well here. Look at this massive, filthy, disgusting line of peasant archers, like, good gracious. And this is legal under the Banner Tournament rule set. You can take, with certain units that have variations, you can take up to 8 of them. So 8 peasant archers is legal. He's got a line of mobs with some halberds up front, including beast slayers and some regular polearms with Grail Relic. He's also got a Damsel Lord of Heavens. There aren't too many targets worth healing. He does have Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis, Knights of the Realm, and a single unit of Pegasus Knights up in the air. Myself, I had an idea of what was coming because Lotus Moon had told me about a similar build, but I've got a High Slon here to help secure the air, heal, give a Hand of Glory as well, give that Shield of Safri. We've got 2 Solar Engines, a Dread Saurian, just because I wanted to see how that would do here. 3 units of Temple Guard, including the Star Chamber Guardians, and some Skink Cohort. So we're going to get things underway, and you can see Curse of the Midnight Wind being used here. It is upgraded, so it has an extended effect duration, and this is actually a very smart play. Down to 70 armor, and with this massive volume of fire, suddenly the Dread Saurian is going to start to take a lot of damage. I mean, he's a big, thick boy, right? Meanwhile, Lewin gets hit by Lewin gets hit by a Tempest and gets blasted by the Solar Engines, and it seemed like, yeah, Lion Shield, I believe, he did pop there, so he is resisting quite a bit of that damage, but even still, taking some heat. And for myself, that was a bit of a mistake, trying to shoot Lewin while Lion Shield was active, because obviously Solar Engines do magic missile damage, so they're going to do basically nothing to Lewin while that's active. But yeah, you can see the Star Chamber Guardians, they only have 85 armor. They don't have that great of a missile block chance. So against a super heavy, just massive sheets of fire like this, they're going to take quite a bit of damage. And, you know, with the Banishment rolling through, I'm not really prioritizing my shooting like I should be in terms of leadership. I really should be shooting the units that got hit by the Banishment to break their leadership and then kind of roll down the line with that. But even still, Lewin's going to dive down. I'm going to keep calling him Lewis by accident for some reason. I don't know why or where that's coming from, to be honest. But he's going to have to run away from the Dread Saurian. It's still relatively healthy. We still got plenty of healing with the High Slon and plenty of resistance with Shield of Safri. I'm actually going to use the Tempest on these Pegasus Knights, though. Since there's no healing for them, the damage scaling will be very good for them. We'll be able to pick off a few models with that and do quite a bit. And likewise with the Solar Engines, I'm going to do what I should have been doing before when I was shooting at Lewin, which is to shoot something else, which is the Pegasus Knights at the moment. Unfortunately, this Skink Cohort here gets broken up, so we're going to have to send in these Temple Guards. I had just been holding the Temple Guards back so they don't get shot up too much, honestly. There's no reason to send them into that massive amount of fire. And over on this flank, we're going to try and push up and through. The Knights of the Realm managed to get caught up by the Temple Guard there after charging out some Skink Cohort. Saurian can use its terror to try and take out some units here, but we're also going to need it potentially to help protect the Slann. Thankfully for me, skinks are fast, right? That's one of the main advantages, and they have good enough stats that they can definitely beat peasant archers in melee. So the fact that I've got just a couple of skink cohorts running around in this backline here, I mean, they are getting charged out by defenders of the fleur-de-lis, which is not the best, but still, just having them threatening this pocket, and oh man, I wish I had a banishment right here. Oh man, yeah. Probably should have potentially saved that banishment, but, you know, you definitely want to use it when you got them, just in case. Lewin comes in. We're going to get another Curse of the Midnight Wind here to sunder the armor, and I believe that was also layered with the Sword of Corone at one point as well to get a minus 60 armor, which is just excellent in terms of synergy there. All that Peasant Archer fire actually able to shatter the Dread Saurian and then just straight up take it down. Absolutely hunted, so that's very, very bad for me in terms of value. That being said, the bounce power is still pretty close. You can see we're blasting Lewin a little bit there. One of the shots actually hits the body of the Saurian, which is an unfortunate situation. But yeah, one more banishment going to be used a little bit late. That blob of archers was very, very juicy before, but it's better late than never. Still is going to get quite a bit of damage in. And yeah, again, these skink cohorts in the back line, sometimes somehow it rolls just like directly past them and doesn't hit them at all, which is awesome. They're going to be able to continue to tie that up, but the Slann's relatively exposed at this point. Again, I'm having to use the solar engines to kind of protect the Slann, which is not the best, because then I'm not shooting these peasant archers. But still, we've got some Temple Guard here. We've got some Temple Guard over on the far side still fighting, and Skink's still making problems here for these peasant bowmen. Just nothing really here to deal with them. I mean, there's a handful of Beast Slayers, but they really don't have enough numbers to hold those Skinks back. And I have used up all the ammo on my solar engines, so we're just going to have to use these Bastiladons then to tank out the damage of the archers and potentially beat them in melee. But speaking of beating them in melee, Lewin actually just about lost to that Slann there somehow. And yeah, decided to pull back because of the Temple Guard. We still got these Temple Guard fighting here, but it looks like they're going to be this focus fire for the next ones. Unfortunately, these Skinks, who had been just absolute champions here in the back, tying up a bunch of units, are going to get terrified away by Lewin. But things are still pretty close. We are going to fast forward a bit through this mid-game here, as it will take some time. Hadris is going to do what he should, which is to kite me with his massive line of archers. I'm slower than him, or about the same speed, more or less. So there's not really a lot I can do about this, except just to try and catch isolated units wherever I can, and try and protect the Slann from a diving Lewin. Make sure we keep everyone together as much as possible, but Hadris is going after the Temple Guard because they're the lowest armor here, which is the right play, and also because the single entities, once they're completely isolated, honestly aren't going to be that strong against Lewin. So, gotta play a patient game here and use up all of the ammo on the peasant archers potentially, but he still has quite a bit, and then even then, once the peasant archers run out of ammo, he can still use their bodies, as you should with peasants, to just kind of feed them to the lizardmen, to me, I guess, to my Bastiladons slowly, while Lewin then cycle charges the rest into oblivion. So not a lot I can do about this at this point, except just try and endure and sustain, but the Bastiladons really don't have enough combat stats to fight Lewin very well. I mean, I can try and charge him when he comes down to the ground, but their charge bonus is not amazing. 34 is okay. I might be able to get a couple hits on him. I guess they'd be slightly higher than his melee attack. Still not the best chance to hit, and again, that's only on the charge. So yeah. You can see the bounce power eventually starts to turn against me, and I just don't have quite enough in the tank to win. And Hadris takes home a victory with a very, very strange and unchivalrous Bretonnian build. Now, that being said, I think I made a couple of mistakes there, honestly, in my targeting. I could have been a little bit more efficient with the solar engines and not necessarily shooting Lewin while the Lion Shield is active, maybe spreading the fire a little bit more to the peasants, and using the fire also a little bit more efficiently to, you know, break specific peasants that were already low leadership, and just try and keep them routing, you know, for more of that time. But credit to where credit's due. Hadris played that excellently. I do think he had fire arrows there. I want to check something in just a minute, but I think it would probably be better to bring poison, just because the solar engines technically don't do that much armor piercing damage. It's like primarily non-armor piercing, I believe. So if we go ahead and have a look here, yeah, solar engines, yeah, primarily non-AP. So with the Bretonnians, I believe they might have changed this back, but I want to say that the fire arrows actually have less armor piercing. Let's have a look here. 2 AP, yeah, so they actually have less armor piercing than the poison, but what is that? Just more missile damage overall? Let's have a look here. 21 missile damage overall, non-armor piercing. So yeah, it actually does more missile damage overall, so maybe with the armor sundering, that would actually come out to be slightly better. Yeah, the regular peasant archers only have 19, just the same as the poison, so I don't know. I'd have to math it out and kind of see whether it's better to have the additional non-armor piercing damage. But that's interesting. Kind of the fire versus the poison. There's nothing specifically here that's going to be weak to fire damage. So it's not like you're necessarily getting any bonus there, but that's interesting. I didn't realize it had higher overall missile damage. Interesting. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed watching that one. I know it was definitely an interesting game for me to play, and kind of opened up my eyes a little bit. Yeah, and just as it kind of pertains to you guys playing your own factions, just think outside the box once in a while. And not only that, but talk to other people who play your faction, and or, you know, like, what I should say is get someone who doesn't play your faction to try them, and just, you know, come up with wild builds and stuff. Like, I wouldn't consider myself necessarily a vampire counts player, but, you know, I definitely have come up with some pretty fun builds for them. And, you know, just any kind of build, right? Like Vampire Coast, try a rush build, or an all Vanguard, or with the dwarfs even, you can do something weird and go all Vanguard. Or, you know, try and bring a rush build. It's not going to work very well, but the Empire's a good example of this, because they can play in so many different ways that, I mean, you can play like missile defense, you can play very aggressive, kind of charge-oriented. You can sort of play infantry blob in a way with Volkmar. It's not great, but you can try. Yeah, you can do kite builds definitely with them as well. It's a lot of factions are more flexible than they might seem on the surface. And so just keep an open mind when it comes to build, and try weird stuff. Like, make a build that you don't think is going to work very well just because it's like so strange, but try it anyway with some friends and just see what happens, you know. Experimental builds like that, I mean, oftentimes you'll learn things, especially if you set up your builds correctly. Like, oftentimes with my meme builds, you'll notice there's still a few good units, right? And there's a specific synergy going on, like with the Gorst 5 Corpse Cart build. Like, that's just lots of passive healing, right? So, and it still has some good units like the Vargulfs and the Blood Knights, right? So even though you're absolutely memeing by bringing 5 Corpse Carts, you still have the units you need to win, right? So there's definitely a way to build meme builds, and maybe I'll talk more about that in another video. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.